I went to school in Pockettown, so I guess we could kind of say that area over there, like by the Gary Coleman Center. Kind of grew up a little bit over there, just watching my peers and people around me go through different things as far as like life and street shit. I guess I kind of learned street smartness from there. You could say that.
What high school you went to?
Perspectives.
Okay, Perspectives. What was it like going to Perspectives?
It was different, especially my freshman year. It was different freshman year. First of all, I was the second graduating class, so it was only, when I came in as a freshman, there was only one class ahead of us. So it was only freshmen and sophomores in the building. It was super small.
So what is like 50 of y'all in there?
Yeah, no, literally. I think only like 46 of us graduated out of a class of like 55.
Damn.
So, yeah, it was different though. I didn't know anything about the low end prior to going to that school. Like I said, I spent most of my time over east as a child. So going to school on the low end was just different. Like people would ask me like, what buildings you stayed in? I'm thinking they talking about some buildings over east.
You don't know what the fuck they talking about.
I'm like, Ickies? I don't know what y'all talking about. I'm not from down here, this
they
side
thought
of
you
town.
was from the projects.
I don't know nothing about the low end, so. But yeah, it was interesting.
It definitely got to be weird with only like 50-something students in the school. Like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, that school was so small. Like, I don't even know what my parents found that school at, to me.
Do you think it was worth it going there? Because, you know, we don't really have a choice what high school we go to as well,
Right.
our parents want to go to. But do you think, like, that school prepared you for your next step?
In certain ways, yes. But I will say, you know, I was always, like, a smarty pants. So even in high school, like, I kind of not went against the grain, but I was too smart for the BS that was going on. And as a student, you know, like, teachers want to be like, oh, you know, you just a child, you know what you're talking about. But at that moment, I didn't think they were doing anything that was going to help me in life, especially, like, we used to have these principles they used to make us do called ADL. It literally stands for a disciplined life. And we literally had a class. It was like a BS class to me. I'm like, why are we learning this stuff? Right. And they would have like 32 principles on like how to communicate effectively, how to show support, show compassion, all these different principles that later in life I realized like, damn, they was trying to teach us like not just academics, but how to survive in the world essentially. So, yeah.
When you was in high school, what was a dream that you had?
I knew I wanted to be a superstar.
Okay.
And I always knew I wanted to do radio. So when I was in high school, especially graduating, I'm like, I'm about to move to Atlanta, get on the radio. Something. Then I used to be watching Love and Hip Hop, so this probably sounds terrible to say that. But no, for real, like my dream always been to be big.
What do you think that came from? Like, what, other than love and hip hop, like what made you like have those big aspirations, I would say, for like entertainment?
I would say Oprah Winfrey was one of my first inspirations, like growing up watching her, because she was still in my era, you know what I'm saying? So watching the Oprah Winfrey show with my granny or my parents, I just used to watch her like, wow, like that's dope. Like she on TV, she get to interview people, and I always been a social person. So I'm like, damn, I want to do that. Like I can do that. I love music. And also Wendy Williams. Shout out to Wendy Williams too. I seen her show is closing. Or they taking her show off air. You know, that's very unfortunate. But I looked up to people like her, Lala. I was looking at these different women, and I'm like, this is dope. Like, I want to do this. I want to be in position to conduct interviews and host different events and just meet people from all across the world.
So after you graduate from Perspectives, like, where do you go to college?
I went to SIUC in Carbondale. Unfortunately.
Why you say unfortunately?
That wasn't the school I wanted to go to, per se. But I went there on the full ride scholarship, so.
All right, before we get into the full ride, what school did you want to go to? What school did you want to attend?
I was so adamant about going to Clark Carolina. Like, I had got a cheerleading scholarship, so that's like sports and cheerleading and track. That's stuff I always did, like as far as extracurricular activities. So I'm like, I'm trying to go to Atlanta. You know, it's all part of the Atlanta dream. I'm finna go to Clark Carolina, be a cheerleader, you know, and try to get on the radio some way, somehow. I always thought, like, I don't believe you have to go to college to do this, just because of the people that I seen. Like, I don't know if Wendy Williams went to college or not, so let me not speak too soon. But a lot of people in the entertainment industry that I was seeing coming up wasn't people that I seen go to college. So I'm like, okay, I just need to put myself in position to meet some people so I could get on. And that was my dream. I wanted to go to college for all the wrong reasons. I'm like, Clark Carolina, that's a good idea, you know, go knock out my little 4 years. But if I get on before then, I don't know. College school 8.
All right, so you don't go to Clark Atlanta, you end up at SIU. It's Carbondale, you feel me now? From everything that I heard, Carbondale was the school to go to. Everybody, like my cousin, all of them went to Carbondale, and they went to Carbondale because everybody they knew went to Carbondale. So why you say Carbondale wasn't it for you?
Because I wasn't trying to go where everybody was going. And that was the thing. Like, it's crazy because when I was in high school, shout out to Perspective too, because another thing they did, they made us apply to 20 colleges and 10 scholarships. Like, we have to do that to graduate. And during that process, I'm like, you know, everybody talking about Carbondale. I wanted to get out of Chicago, out of Illinois in general, because I always lived here, so I wanted to experience another state anyways.
Yeah.
And Atlanta was already on my on my radar. Like, I need to go to Atlanta. And so I was just like, I was on the ones like, that's the last school I'm gonna be going to. Just for me to end up going there, that's crazy.
Now, you say you got a full ride scholarship. Was that also a cheerleading scholarship?
Not for SIU. I received a cheerleading scholarship of $1,500 per semester to cheer at Clark Carolina. But the reason why I didn't go to Clark Carolina is because the tuition fees for out of state was just ridiculous. And unfortunately, my parents didn't want to help me, you know, get Parent Plus loans and do all that. And so I was kind of on my own trying to do that process by myself as a senior. And I just didn't have enough money. I received like $21,000 in scholarships, and I would have still owed them like $12,000 that I would have to come out of pocket with. So, you know, my mama and them, like, I was just so hell bent on going to a HBCU, but it was a thing where like they was only giving out so much money, especially coming out of state. It was like, so my mama was like, no, look, that's how you just pay for your whole year and next year, and as long as you keep your grades, they will keep paying. So that's where you're going.
Looking back on it, do you feel like you should have just took that $12,000 hit, or was SIU okay?
Sometimes I do feel like, you know, I should have, but at the time I felt like I couldn't get along by myself at 18. You know, I didn't have any support to help me get additional funding to go. So in my mind, I'm like, shit, I tried everything. Like, and I didn't know I was going to SIU until I want to say like a couple weeks before classes was about to start. Like, that's how adamant I was. I'm like, I'm going to Atlanta. They finna give me some more money. And I scrambled up, you know, as much as I could, but it was still just like, you know. But hey, I ended up at SIU. I did some great things in Carbondale, so I guess it all worked out.
All right, so now you get to SIU. Like, what are some ways that you actually do pursue your career of being a radio host and, you know, getting into the entertainment industry?
So I get to SIU, and it's crazy, right? Because I already knew what I wanted to major in. Like, a lot of people I came in with was like undecided. I'm like, media, radio, television, digital media, sign me up. And I was there. I went through so much in college. I ended up getting kicked out, lost my scholarships. And I just had to take a minute and ask myself, like, what's my purpose? Like, what am I trying to do? Like, I know I want to be on the radio. I'm here taking radio classes, but they're not teaching me how to be on radio. Like, all my classes were geared towards writing for news, just doing news things, recording for news, going out, getting news stories, being an anchor. I was like 2 years in, I'm like, bro, when am I gonna take a radio class? All right, is anybody gonna teach me how to be on the radio? And so after I got kicked out of SIU, I ended up going to this community college that was down there because I didn't want to go back home. I did a year there and then I transferred back into SIU, and I was talking to, what do they call them? They're like the dean of your department, and you get like a counselor that you're supposed to check in for each department. So I was talking to her, her name was Jean Kelly, and I'm Jean. I'm only coming here, you know what I'm saying? I need to have classes that's gonna help me establish what I'm trying to do. I don't wanna take any more news classes because I don't wanna do news.
Right.
I get that's a part of the program, but I wanna be a radio person now. You know, this is very one-sided. So I kept complaining about that because I'm just like, why am I paying for classes that's not helping me be on the radio?
Right.
And I was working at this liquor store, and my coworker, shout out to Johnny, he's a musician, and he was like, you know, I was telling him like, I'm gonna go back to SIU, I'm gonna get my own little radio show, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna do it. And he referred me to the local radio station down there in Carbondale, WDBX. He was like, yo, I used to do a show there, you should go out there and talk to him. I think that'd be really cool. He like, you know, if SIU don't wanna help you, like, it's radio stations that actually down here that will. And so I waited till I got back in SIU, and that year came, and I went to go talk to Dave at WDBX. I had no experience whatsoever. Dave trained me for a weekend, and then the next week I was on air, and I was controlling the board, and it was just, from there I just started teaching myself.
That sounds like the easiest process of getting into radio ever. Just introduce yourself to somebody, and then he training you, and then throw you to the sharks.
Yep, yeah.
So what was the hardest learning curve? Because like you say, you had to eventually like learn everything else on your own and go as you learn. So what was the biggest learning curve from there when they threw you on air?
For me, because I'm an overthinker, it was more so like I didn't know if I was doing it right. So I would always ask for feedback. You know, we'd be like, oh, that sounds good. But I didn't have anybody like in my field to actually guide me and be like, okay, do it like this, do it like that. So I was just freestyling a lot hopping when I first hopped into it. And then as I started meeting more new people, I started developing more mentors. But originally, the hardest part, it was not knowing if I was doing it right, or if I had everything down packed.
All right, so boom, you in radio now. Is Carbondale rocking with you on the radio station? For
sure. I could go to Carbondale. I can go back to shout out to WDBX, shout out to WSIU. They definitely gave me, and shout out to WIDB. All three of those stations, all three of those platforms gave me an opportunity to showcase my talents, and that opened doors for other students on campus to eventually showcase their talents as well. So shout out to them. I know I can go there anytime and get on air.
Damn, you was like a trailblazer, huh?
Yeah, no, really, because a couple things, like, first of all, we didn't have hip-hop stations in Carbondale. You know, everybody go there, and that's the misconception about Carbondale. It's a college town. And so outside of the university, it's a hick town.
Yeah.
You know, so we didn't have hip-hop and R&B stations on the radio. That wasn't nothing we had. So that was another problem for me because I like music. And so I'm like, something gotta change. And I wasn't the first hip-hop station on WDBX, but I was the first show to make an impact in the community. Like, people knew about, if it was hip-hop shows there, but people knew the Chocolate Baddie show. Like, oh, like, it's a hip-hop show on this radio station. And I think that's what opened the doors for more people to be like, oh, you know, I want to do radio too. Same thing with not having the radio classes. Me complaining, and I used to go have lunch with the Dean of Communications and the people who actually pick the courses that go in the program. Like, I used to have meetings with these people because I'm paying thousands of dollars. At this point, I had got kicked out and re-back in, so now I'm paying out of pocket for this. And I'm like, at this point, you know what I'm saying, I'm not finna be paying out of pocket for y'all not teaching me nothing. And so eventually they ended up getting radio, introduction to radio production, introduction to radio courses. They ended up getting all that like as I was graduating. So that was pretty cool.